Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Disclaimer, episode 3. Today's episode is going to be about boundaries. So, boundaries with time, yourself, and relationships with others. So, those are going to be the three big components that I touch on in this episode, along with some advice that I would give to my younger self and some things looking back on that I've learned. So, let's just jump in. So, in terms of boundaries with your time, something that I'll take you guys back. So growing up, I didn't have boundaries with people, myself, or many relationships at all. I was a yes man. I tended to say yes to just about anything, hanging out with friends, family, stuff I didn't want to do, I'd say yes to, which got me in trouble. And I was a people pleaser, as I've talked to you guys about. So it's something that I've been working on because I have the awareness that it's not a sustainable characteristic or personality trait that I want to move forward with. So, in terms of boundaries that I struggle with in terms of my time, so I mentioned that to this day, I still have a hard time saying no, but it's something that I'm getting better at. So, growing up, the only boundary I really had was with my education. And that was predominantly because my parents instilled education comes first, everything else comes next. So they kind of instilled that boundary into me. So if there was homework that had to be done, a project, anything that had to come before socializing. And sure, there were times I tried to get around it, but it's something that I learned. And actually, I'm grateful that they taught me that because when I went to college, I had that kind of foundation to say no in terms of certain things to help me excel in college. And I had pretty high, or tend to hold myself to like higher standards than I don't want to say some people that may sound egotistical, but I hold myself to high standards because I know that I'm capable of excelling. So, in saying all that, I had a hard time saying no to people in general, but when I got to college, the saying no from my education really was beneficial because I missed out on socializing sometimes, but I got my work done and I did well and I excelled in college. So that was really one of the first times that I learned to say no. And or that helped me a lot in college as well. So like I learned to say no kind of like through high school. And when I got to college, that again was beneficial. But I still struggle to this day, like I said. Another thing that helped me manage my time with boundaries was working out. So my health is pretty important to me, as I've talked to you guys about. So whenever it came to going to the gym, specifically in college, I always made time. There was no excuse. And there were times I'd tell people no because I had to go to the gym. I want to socialize. Oh, I want to stay up later. Well, no, I need to get up earlier, or I need to get up early and go to the gym because it was just who I was, what I did, how I got things done. And again, not saying that's everybody's way, but that was the way of Clay at the time. So those were the two main reasons or factors that helped me say no over the course of time in college. But in saying all that, I made a lot of decisions or I made a lot of choices that I don't want to say I regret, but I made a lot of choices in college because I was a people pleaser. So I would say yes to things that I didn't really want to do, but I would do them because it made somebody else happy and it just seemed to work at the time. So I made them happy and it was something that made me happy, as weird as that may sound. But yeah, it definitely made me happy by being that person to say yes in terms of what, whether it was socializing, going out, made them happy. I got a reaction out of somebody. And yeah, that's sure, that's definitely changed, but there's still that yes man inside. So I'm not saying that I figured it out, because what I've recognized is that it's a practice. And if you keep up the practice, just like if you play soccer, you go to soccer practice, you do well. If you maintain going to soccer practice, it's the same thing with saying no or saying yes. The more you maintain, or the more, for me, the more that I maintained saying no, I can't because X, Y, or Z, essentially setting a boundary around my time by saying that no, it was a practice. And it's something that I've learned, that the more that I practice saying no, the easier it is. And yeah, that's obviously easier said than done. But the more that I listen to my intuition or my heart or my gut or God, the more that I not only feel better inside, but I gain more confidence by saying no, and by practicing it, I get better at it. And I get better at setting the boundary for my time. So, in saying all that, I something that I recognized is that not only does it get better the more you practice it, but the more that you embrace that's who you are, the more it just becomes natural. And that's something that I have been kind of working on, like essentially feeling quicker almost. So feeling what your body's telling you and then acting on it, acting on, not being impulsive, but knowing your body well enough to know, oh, I should be going down to the beach with my friend, or no, I shouldn't be going down to the beach with my friend. Like there's kind of like a happy medium where you gotta where you or at least for me, I've learned that listening to it and acting on it kind of makes the practice kind of speed up a little bit. So you're able to set boundaries quicker or more efficient. And again, that's just for me. So moving on to boundaries with myself. So that was kind of just time. That was kind of a combo between boundaries with time and socializing and relationships a little bit. But my point there was really, you got to protect your energy. And to protect your energy, you got to protect your time. So what I'm kind of alluding to is, in terms of boundaries with yourself, you need to know your, or like for me, I never knew exactly who I was for a while. And not that I know exactly who I am now, but I have a much more robust understanding than who I am, I have a much more robust understanding in who I am now compared to who I was 5 years ago, for example. And again, that kind of just comes down to time and getting to know yourself through time. And the more energy that you can protect, the more time that you have. So, what I mean by that is, by saying no to certain things that don't serve your energy, you're protecting, not only your energy, but your time. And your time is the most valuable asset that you have. Or I keep saying you, I mean me, but I mean you as well. But I'm just trying to give you guys an insight in terms of my view on boundaries. That's why I was saying you versus me. My my view on boundaries has changed so much because I've learned to say no a lot more, and I've learned to know when to say no. Like I just simply feel it. Like we all have some sort of feeling inside of us that's kind of communicating to us in a weird, like vibrational way. But it's like, for me at least, it's telling me, kind of like vibrating up my stomach to my head, telling me you should say no, even though you want to say yes, because you're a people pleaser or whatever the reason may be. Um, but yeah, it's kind of this weird thing that for me at least, I have developed a better relationship with my internal self. So I think that's helped me say no more. So I've learned that communication between like my mind and my body and my soul. So yeah, I used to neglect a lot of parts about boundaries with myself. I never, like I was saying earlier, I never really wanted to spend a lot of time alone. I never really wanted to really invest and kind of understand what was going on internally. So I simply just neglected that, like that part, and that affected, you know, me neglecting it affected the boundaries with everything in my life, from myself, my relationships, and time. So yeah, my relationship with myself has gotten a lot better. Let me try to think of some things that, I that have really helped me, or that have really kind of given me a little bit of an insight. So, oh, here we go. So, I tend to be extreme with a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to say views, but the way I behave, I'm pretty extreme. So, a part of this probably comes down to my boundaries. I used to not set boundaries, and now I set boundaries. I set a lot of boundaries to kind of, it's a weird saying, but I almost look at it, at least I used to for a while, and I still do sometimes, but I'm trying to work on it. I look at it like I'm trying to make up that time because of the amount of energy that I gave away. So, I didn't set boundaries with my body for a while. I would just, you know, indulge in tons and tons of food and not look at ingredients. And again, it's not that you can't eat a lot of food and stuff like that, but I let myself go. And that's not that's not the boundary that I wanted to have with myself. I wanted to have a stronger boundary to the point where I could have a little bit of balance. I was very one side, and then now for a while, I would say 2025 is kind of the transition in terms of rebalance, but I was not balanced at all, eating a ton of food and indulging everything, neglecting my body. And then I went the complete opposite direction. And now I'm trying to find that balance because I recognize that me being extreme with that, sure, there's benefits, but there's benefits with everything. And I realized that I was neglecting a part of myself, and a part of myself was kind of getting hurt by not setting the boundary a while ago and then setting the boundary really extreme. I began to neglect, like, for me, for example, in this example, I neglected my social life because I was just so into cooking and food and eating clean, because a component of it was that, not just boundaries, or no, this is boundaries now that I think about it. It's my boundary with social media was also, again, very extreme. So that kind of tied into this, like extreme food, like obsession that I had and I developed. So I was indulging in a lot of content which called created me, or inadvertently made me, like, kind of like fear certain things like foods and certain things like that. So I needed to work on that boundary with social media. So that was another boundary that's actually something I'm still working with or working on. Um, the whole boundary with social media is kind of like a weird boundary that I catch myself in as I create content. Um, yeah, because I'm commenting and liking and trying to engage with other creators' posts. Which sure, I can be engaging with, I think that I am engaging with people that are who have high good content in terms of the what I'm ingesting. It's, self-help, a lot of it's nutrition advice and ways to grow, not only like physically, but like mentally and spiritually as well. So, in saying all that, I've been trying to really work on my boundary with social media because it's something that I tend to just overlook sometimes. I'm like, oh, I gotta, post on social media, and then I neglect something that's going on in real life, like my girlfriend or myself, or giving someone a call that I should be, talking to or socializing, like I was just saying. So, in saying all that, some of the boundaries with myself that I've really been honing in on and working on is my boundary with social media, my boundary with food, and being a little bit less extreme and dogmatic about if I, go out and have something to eat with my girlfriend or her family or a friend, that it's okay, because it's something that I went so extreme with because I didn't have the boundary before, like I said, and now I'm trying to rebalance because I went too extreme with it, I think. And who knows, maybe I'll pivot, I'll rebalance a little bit, because life's kind of just a game of trying to think of the right word, seesawing. You're constantly going up, you're going down, one side's up, one side's down. At least, for me, trying to rebalance certain things and boundaries is something I've been working on. So yeah, in saying all that, let's move forward into boundaries with other relationships and other people. So actually, right before we get to that, one thing I want to touch on is that I've learned that the more boundaries that you set with yourself, and the more that you would, achieve those boundaries, whether it's like discipline, going to the gym, or boundaries, like I was saying with social media, setting them, being aware and actually acting on it. So taking action on those, making the boundary and practicing the boundary every day makes boundaries with other people a lot easier. It's something that I've found out for myself, and that I constantly want to remind myself that, which is partly why I'm reminding you guys. I just want to give you guys a little bit of an insight on, what I've learned about boundaries. So yeah, moving more into relationships and friendships and family, I've learned that saying no makes people respect you more, you know? Not that you need to be respected, and that shouldn't be the reason why you're setting boundaries, but people respect people who have boundaries. And people want to be around people who have boundaries because they're not only successful financially, but they're fun people to be around because their time is valuable, their energy is precious. There's a limited amount of time or energy that you can spend with those people because they respect their boundaries and they abide by them. So something that I've been working on a lot, as I was, kind of just alluding, in terms of like socializing and setting that boundary with social media, mainly more with socializing in this case, but my boundary with sleep. So I have talked to you guys a little bit about my story and my surgeries that I've had on my shoulder. So I've used sleep as kind of like a medicine to heal. Not kind of. I have used sleep as a medicine to heal because it is a medicine. It's when our bodies recover the most. So, especially with, for me, for example, I mean, everybody has different traumas, but in this case, your body's able to process different traumas when you sleep. So, setting boundaries with that is something that I have been working on. And actually, I mean, I I want to say I don't want to say I've mastered it because again, like I said, it's a practice for me at least. It's something that you can fall back into the trap of going out all the time or spending too much time socializing. But setting boundaries with my sleep has been probably pretty hard on my social life, but I made the sacrifice so that I could heal, so that I could get to this point. And I don't regret it, but everybody has their own priorities. So some people may be like, oh, it's so disappointing that you're going to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock because we want to do this. We want to watch the Super Bowl. We want to, spend time with you, Clay. And yeah, I make exceptions. But in saying all that, my relationships with others in terms of saying no and setting boundaries, I've limited the amount of people that I socialize with because I recognized how valuable my time was in terms of what I wanted to accomplish and where I wanted to be in my life. So I had to start saying no and pushing different people out of my life to get to the point I'm at now. And it doesn't mean that I don't like those people, I hate them. A part of it's just life, like people come and go in life and it's sad, but it's the truth. And yeah, it's the truth. Some truths are hard to swallow. But kind of going more into relationships with others and saying no, it's something I really been working on with my current girlfriend by simply, speaking the truth, telling the truth, even if you like, for example, if I want to go somewhere and she doesn't want to go, or vice versa, simply communicating that and saying no, not like screaming, no, I'm not going, but learning how to communicate, you know, the boundary is honestly kind of what I was trying to get at there. So learning to communicate the boundary kind of is a little bit different for each category, like time, yourself, relationships. Learning to communicate the boundary with time. For me, it came down to recognizing that I have a limited amount of time and the time that I give my energy to in terms of people, environments, can either bring me up or bring me down. And I do my best to surround myself around people that are going to bring me up so that I can improve, you know? So, in terms of communicating with yourself, I think that comes down to recognizing when you begin to self sabotage. And that is another episode I want to go more deep into. But self sabotage is something I've struggled with a lot. And again, it's like a practice, it comes and goes. And the more that I take care of my health, especially my spiritual health and my mental health, I guess all three of them, but if I were to say one, my spiritual health seems to be the one that helps me most communicate best with myself or with myself. So when my spiritual health is in check, I can communicate better to myself. I think through simply like feeling that internal voice or internal like vibration and listening to it and acting on it. not just listening and writing a list or anything like that, like simply acting on it and making the choice to have the discipline to, go, whether it's go to the gym or meal prep before work or prioritize socializing like once a week, once a month, whatever it is, like acting on that, not just saying, oh, I'll do it, you know? And then finally communicating to others, like your relationship, your family, your friends, saying no. It's a little bit different, in my opinion, from what I've learned. It's not just a cookie. It's not like I can give you a little cookie cutter because it's not the way it works for me. It's not like I can communicate the same with my family or my mom specifically to the same that I communicate to my best friend. I communicate a little bit different, a little bit more direct with one versus maybe a little bit more, I listen more to the other one. So it's the same with my girlfriend and my dad or something like that. Like you communicate a little bit differently. Sure, there's definitely going to be overlaps in terms of how you communicate because overall you're going to say no. But for the most part, for me, it comes down to a lot of listening in terms of how the other person feels and reiterating the way that they feel and telling them the way that you feel so that you are clear on the way that they feel and that they feel understood, and then communicating your end of things so that they understand. So it's kind of like a give and take. So you have to give by recognizing and understanding and reiterating to an extent the way the other person's feeling. And then you got to take by saying no. You got to say, no, I cannot, I'm not going to go to the grocery store with you. Or, I'm not going to go out to dinner with you. So, it, in saying all that, it's you just communicate. For me, at least, I communicate a little bit differently, and I've been working on being more direct. And what I've recognized is the more concise I am with my word, the easier it is. The easier the other person understands, and the easier it is for me to just say no. So essentially being concise. So let me give you a brief example before we wrap up. So someone invites you out, a group of coworkers invite you out to a little party, a little barbecue, and you say, I'd love to join you guys because they're really trying to get you to come. They, they're telling you don't have to bring any food, you don't have to bring anything, but we really want you to come and we want your presence. But you haven't been to the gym in about a week, and it's just what you need. In this case, I would say, I understand you want my energy, you want me to come to the barbecue. It'll make you feel good. You'll have it, you may have a better time, you may not, but I understand that you feel like you really want me to come. It would make the company culture maybe a little bit stronger, but I need to prioritize myself because if I don't, the company culture will suffer more. So I cannot come. So yeah, and saying all that, I would say the biggest thing that I recognize in terms of setting boundaries is being concise, saying no the most clear and direct ways you can. And I struggle with this. Like I said, to this day, it's hard, but it doesn't get easier. It's just like starting whatever, whether it's a new hobby, whether it's a new job, whether it's starting to go in and get a new car. It's not the easiest, and there is a little bit always like a resistance. And I feel it. I feel it right now. or maybe I don't feel it right now, but I feel it sometimes when I'm talking to different people. And yeah, so being concise is really what I've kind of wanted to highlight here. And that your energy is precious. Your energy is such a unique form of a vibration that doesn't exist anywhere else. And you need to protect that because it is the most valuable asset that you have. Nobody can take that from you. Your uniqueness, your energy, the time and all that you give into, showing up to different places, environments, or showing up for people, it's so sacred. And I've recognized the more that I set boundaries, the happier that I am, especially with myself. The more that I set boundaries with myself, the happier that I am. Wow. Well, in saying all that, I wanted to wrap up on a little quote with everybody and let you guys kind of I wanted you guys to kind of sit with this. So here we go. Every time, every time that you say yes to something that you don't actually want to do, you're saying no to something else that matters more. So think about that. What are you sacrificing or giving up for saying yes? Next time you say yes, what are you sacrificing? What are you giving up next time you say yes? All right, my friends, that ends episode 3. Thank you so much for listening. And we will be back next week for some more disclaimers. Again, I wanted to wrap up with this. This is a little disclaimer. Everything that I tell you guys is not medical advice. Just some advice coming from this noggin that I'm trying to share. All right. You guys take care of yourselves. Thank you for your time. We'll talk soon, or we'll listen soon. All right.